broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hello, everyone. This is the AfterBuzz after show for The Good Wife. It is season 7, episode 4, Taxed. That's right, we're in the season where there's just that one word titles to the shows right now. So, we have the word taxed. And so as you can see, I'm holding it down solo tonight. I hope you don't mind because we're still going to cover the show from the rooter to the tutor. Bobby isn't feeling well, so let's send some good vibes and some thoughts his way. And Allison had an event to cover. Got to keep those gigs going. So it's just you and I today. So we're going to get into it right off the top. And I want to say that my impressions of this episode was really... It wasn't the type of episode where we moved anything forward in the personal lives of Alicia or Peter or their relationship or anything like that. It was kind of this, but it was this episode where the Kings got a chance, as we've talked about before, to kind of give their opinion on particular topics without directly addressing the topic. I just felt throughout the entire episode there was a lot of a power struggle going on, a power struggle between, of course, Eli and Ruth, a power struggle between Alicia and the Bun judge, who should be totally in her, licking her boots after Eli helped him out with that whole, blackmail case that was coming against him. A power struggle between Alicia and the other Bond attorneys. It was just a lot of different power struggles. And also the Kings were giving their opinion, I think, on some pretty heavy topics that come into the news, and euthanasia as well as racial profiling. And we didn't really get any answers to those issues because can we really answer those issues? But it was very interesting, the commentary that they provided in this episode. But as I said, there's a lot that was going on, so we should get started right from the top. And so I would say the first thing that came up was the wrongful death suit with Alexa and her parents. Alexa's parents were suing the doctors who actually gave their daughter prescription drugs in order to help her, assist her in her suicide. And so this whole topic of physician-assisted suicide and the different legal opinions in different states came up. But I think even a bigger thing that came up was the fact that Diane was there in the courtroom listening to another counsel defend the parents of the deceased. And she had actually prepped this counsel, and this was all, remember, we always knew that Mr. Dimple was going to come back, and his spirit was in this episode even though his presence was not there. And he sent his general counsel, Carver, who was played by Peter Gallagher, fantastic actor, to come and speak on his behalf. And what happens is, very quickly in the episode, we realize that the attorney that Diane's been prepping for the past, 6 months, wasn't holding ground, and they wanted Diane to replace him. Now, I have to say, given Mr. Dimple's character and the fact that he and Diane go back and forth and have this kind of banter that I enjoy so much because they're so free in their opinions, but so cerebral and intellectual in the opinions that they provide, I think it was a setup the entire time to have Diane replace the counsel when she did. I mean, Diane is very open about her opinion that she is pro physicians assisting in suicide. And of course, she would have known this from day one from working with him, because she said to General Counsel Carver, I'm not supposed to stand in front of the court. I'm only supposed to prep this other attorney. But I think that Dimple set this up from the beginning and knew that if he got Diane to spend 6 months on a case, being the lawyer that she is, when the instance came up and he asked her to replace their counsel, she was going to jump in, not because she believes in the case, but because that's the type of attorney Diane is. Now, I have to say, as an attorney not doing litigation, it's a very difficult place to be where you're asked to represent or stand up for a cause that you don't believe in. But actually, as an attorney, it's not your place to actually state your opinion. It's your place to give the best defense for your client. And so we saw Diane step into the shoes and do this. Now, let's not be naive, because we also know that Diane wants to keep this client very happy, because I think right now, he may have the highest billables at the law firm. I'm not 100% sure, but she definitely wants to keep this client happy because she knows he has these type of think tank cases that go on, and it could mean huge money in billable hours for the firm, even though she and this guy do not get along at all, and she pretty much disagrees with every position that they take, but it is what it is. So Diane steps into the shoes, and lo and behold, who is there in the courtroom defending the doctors? One of my faves, come on, Lewis Canning. And he's doing everything that Lewis Canning normally does in order to defend his client to the best of his ability, which includes all of Lewis's antics of dropping canes and popping pills or trying to open pill bottles at just the right moment. He is so great at that. Michael J. Fox is just fantastic. And we see he and Diane, because Diane knows everything that Lewis is going to do, and she personally detests him, and he doesn't really care for her either. So they're going back and forth in this case, and the case is going forward. And like I said, this is such a huge issue, and I would love to hear everyone's kind of opinion in the comments on this issue. But there's no solutions that are offered. It was just, about this case or whatever. It comes down to Lewis and Diane really facing off in the hallway, and Lewis saying, "You don't believe in this. Why are you doing this?" And Lewis revealing to her, "You really should talk to your clients, because this is really not about this case. This is about a bigger issue of bringing up tons of these cases, which will then increase doctors' malpractice rates," which I have friends whose fathers are doctors, and I have friends who are doctors, and I'm sure you guys do too. Malpractice insurance rates for doctors are humongous. And also a big thing about a lot of the cases that they have, it depends on your time of, your liability for your clients. I mean, the times that you could be liable for what happens to your clients could go on 10, 15 years. It's really outrageous. But this, Lewis was saying to Diane, "You should talk to your clients, because this case is not about this case. This case is about starting the snowball effect of going after tons of doctors in all of these cases. And what that will do is increase the malpractice rates." Well, then Diane says to him, "Well, you're doing this because if you can get laws passed that allow physicians to assist in suicides, then it will actually save the insurance companies millions of dollars." So neither one of them has the ethical position, or neither one of them is really defending and, I would say, paying attention to truly this case, which I think is that's what the Kings were attempting to say in this episode. And they do it with this wrongful death suit, as well as Alicia in bond court, which we'll talk about next, is that so many times in court, in the judicial system, it's not really about the case. It's about something bigger, which I think is what happens is it taints our opinion of the judicial system, because you don't really feel like you're getting your day in court. You feel like you're part of something bigger, and that bigger thing is really not helping you in your cause. And so speaking of that, we can talk about what happened with Alicia in bond court, which I thought was interesting, because we have Alicia in this kind of fish out of water environment, right? She's in bond court. And there's nothing wrong with being a bond court attorney, 100%. I understand it completely. But it's a complete factory. The judge said it perfectly when he said, "We're talking about Lucille Ball wrapping chocolates in the factory." That's what this court is about. And Alicia is coming in with the same type of feeling, same type of defense that she did when she worked at a law firm. And it just doesn't work in this environment. So she's a complete fish out of water. And we've seen her in this bond court the entire season, and she's trying to fit in, but it just doesn't work for her. Here, lo and behold, is another example. So we walk in with Luca, Don, and Bernie picking out or figuring out where they stand in their perps by the pound competition. I have to say off the bat, I don't find the competition funny. I find it really insulting, because I mean, I've never been arrested, thank goodness. But you have these people who are here. They need representation desperately. Their lives are being changed. I mean, okay, some people are serial criminals, whatever. But we're talking about the people who happen to be arrested who are, one, innocent, who want their day in court, who need someone to advocate on their behalf. And that's not happening in these courts at all. What's happening in these courts is that we are just getting people to go through the meal, right? And Alicia just can't go with the meal type of practice. So she sees Bernie talking to Maya Sachs, talking about her case, and he even tells her something incorrect and say, if you don't take this plea, the state's attorney can tack on other charges. Alicia can't take it. She has to tell this woman what's really going on. And of course, lo and behold, what would also happen if you and I were in the same position, you would say, I want her to be my attorney. Everybody in this episode wanted Alicia to defend them, and it really had absolutely nothing to do. You couldn't say that Alicia was a better attorney than the rest of them, because we've seen Luca this entire season come up with some brilliant strategies to help Alicia, in her cases or win her cases. But what it's about is the spirit that Alicia brings to the bond court. She brings the spirit that I am your advocate, I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to help defend your case, which Bernie and Don and Luca do not do. They have been trained to go along with the meal. You bring them in, you get them out. It's all about a volume thing. To them, it's about quantity, not quality. And Alicia is still all about quality. So we have a very interesting case that comes up with Maya Sachs. She says, I was about returning a sweater, I think an $895 or $99 sweater. And I'm like, my gosh, what kind of sweater was that? And her mother gave it to her as a gift, and she went to return it and was arrested for shoplifting. And she was like, and I love the point where she said, I can't take this plea, even though you're going to give me 6 months probation. Even though you're telling me I can seal my records after my probation is over, which means no one will ever see this conviction. What was important to her is I can't look my children in the eye and say that I did something I did not do. I know for a lot of people that could be highly moral, and it's like, whatever, just do what you need to do to get this over. But for her, that meant everything, especially probably because of the fact her mother gave her the sweater. So in her mind, she was like, I didn't do anything wrong. My mother gave me a gift and I needed to return it, and I was arrested. That's wrong. And I can't stand here and say that I did something that I did not do. Alicia was the only person who took the time to listen to her, to stand up for her, and she was punished for it. And this comes into play. This is the power struggle between Alicia and the judge. And this judge has made it very clear that what he cares about is making sure his day does not get backed up. And he did give a different perspective in this episode that he hadn't given in other episodes, when he said, yes, it is about the numbers, but he said certain people will now spend the night in jail and spend a night away from their families because you can't keep this going. And I never really thought of that. And so it was a different perspective, because we've only been shown this bond court as kind of this like factory where you're grinding and you're getting people in and out. But he made a very interesting point of saying that whether it's right or wrong, what we're doing is we're processing people. So either they can plead out, they can get bond, they can go back to jail, but justice is being served and everyone's getting their time in this particular part of bond court, which everyone has to go through. So he made a good point of saying, if you slow the system down, you're slowing the system down for everyone. And certain people who need to go home to be with their families, their children, go to work the next day, whatever it may be, can't do that now because we're spending so much time on one person. It was an interesting, that kind of aspect made me think of things differently. And so now I understand it's this really big tug of war between the two of them. You want to get people in and get people out. So, you want to get people in and get people out so you can get people and process people and get people home. But at the same time, sometimes time needs to stop and pay attention to a case, because not everyone is willing just to take a particular plea. Like, we forget that in this bond court, we are dealing with people's lives, and it's not just numbers, and it's definitely not pounds. This perps by the pound thing just completely drove me nuts. Like, I thought it was the most disrespectful thing ever. And I love that Alicia was like, I'm not playing. I'm not playing. They keep trying to make her into something she's not. We know where she is in her career. We know where she is financially. We know that she needs to do this bond court. And to me, it's not a thing of she's better than them, because she isn't. 100% no one's better than anyone else. But she's just not that person. She just doesn't fit into the bond court world. And they keep showing her that over and over again. And the judge even punished her and took the rest of her cases, which means he took her other $135 for the day from her, which hits her financially. But even still with that, she stood up and stood for the client. Interestingly enough, where she is financially is where she's deciding to stay, because Carrie came to visit her because Mr. Dimple wants Alicia to talk to her husband. As everyone always says, I've always said that Alicia and Peter try to live these separate lives, but even though the way they live on the inside, the outside world still sees them as a couple. And as much as Alicia tries to work and create her own self away from Peter, she can't get around the fact that she is the governor's wife, and that carries a lot of weight and influence, even if she doesn't want to use it. And people depend on that and want her to use that influence, because that's how they present themselves, as this happy governor, husband and wife couple, right? So Carrie comes and knocks on her door, which I thought was interesting, because you guys let me know if I'm wrong, but was this the first time that we see Carrie and Alicia together this entire season? I know they've spoken on the phone, but I think this is the first time we saw them together, and I thought it was fantastic that we saw them in Alicia's apartment, because that's where they started the law firm that Alicia got kicked out of, right? Carrie approaches her and says, if you are willing to lobby Peter to oppose this physician-assisted suicide law that's going to come up, for discussion in Illinois, then maybe we can bring you back to the firm. And Alicia interestingly says, I don't want to come back to the firm. I enjoy what I'm doing. I know it's not a lot of money, but I feel a certain amount of freedom, which in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, Carrie wants Alicia to come back because that firm to him is completely different without her. Carrie is a completely different character. We've talked about it every episode this season. Carrie is a completely different character this season. Like, I don't even feel like Carrie has a storyline, poor guy, without Alicia. And he so desperately wants to go back to what the law firm and the practice of law and his position in the law firm was before. And I think the poor guy has become this kind of peripheral character. We haven't seen him in court. The only thing we've seen him do, the most exciting thing we've seen him do this entire season was, have an argument with Howard? I mean, give me a break, right? So he jumps at the opportunity to go and speak to Alicia about her coming back to the firm. And it must have broken his heart when she said no. She's happy where he is. And we all know, or I think, that he's so searching for that same place, because right now he feels so incredibly lost in the law firm. He has his name on the door, but that's all he has. He doesn't feel like he has anything else. It doesn't seem like. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with Carrie and his character. But this whole discussion about the physician-assisted suicide case in Illinois brings in Peter, brings in Jackie, brings in Grace, brings in Ruth, brings in Eli. Yet another power struggle we're talking about. So we all know, or they explain to us, that they want Peter to veto, or rather the Dimple, let's call it the Dimple Society, wants Peter to veto this physician-assisted suicide law, because, of course, it just, that getting a veto on that goes hand in hand with what Dimple and his people want to happen. So, of course, what they need to do is they need to rally enough people around Peter and get him to hear personal family opinions, because let's be honest, I mean, we listen to the people who we care about, and we know that Peter cares about, whatever it says. We know he cares about Alicia. I know I'm going to get flack out there from people because I said that, but they are still married. He loves Jackie, his mom, Grace, his daughter. So Eli has this idea to have Jackie go and speak to, and Grace too, go and speak to Peter to voice their opinion for several reasons. Not only because the fact that I'm sure he knows they have opposing opinions, so it may possibly confuse Peter, but even more importantly than that, he knows it's gonna piss off Ruth, because Ruth is trying very hard to make sure that she is the gatekeeper to everything that comes Peter's way. Now, as his campaign manager, she is doing the right thing, being the gatekeeper. But as we've always said so many different times, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. The finessing and talking to Grace and Jackie that she did after the fact should have been taken care of before the fact. So I love the interaction between Eli and Jackie when Eli says, you're dressing differently. And he goes, I didn't remember you revealing so much cleavage. Now, in 2015, especially in Los Angeles where I live, the amount of cleavage that Jackie was showing was nothing. But given where she is, maybe it was a big deal. But I love the fact that it brought back the fact of what happened last week, knowing that Jackie has something going on with Howard, or at least I hope she still has something going on with Howard, that, when a woman becomes involved with someone new and is excited about a relationship, she changes certain things. So I love that they kind of threw that in without throwing it in directly. And that caused Jackie to try to go see her son. What mom doesn't want to be able to see her child? And this is where I say Ruth was down on her job. You make sure that the mom is happy when it comes to anyone. I guess they always say happy wife, happy life. Well, same thing stands true for mom. I mean, don't play with mamas. Like, that's for real. So you make sure you handle your bases, Ruth. You've talked to Alicia. That didn't go so great. Your next thing should have been talking to Jackie, talking to Grace, and talking to like that really core inner circle. But I think she's been so focused on her struggle with Eli that she's kind of jumped over all those different things. But Jackie brought it right back to her and brought her home to it when she said to her, how dare you interfere with me speaking to my son? And she had all the right in the world to say that, 100%. And then Ruth took the time she needed to speak to Jackie, speak to Grace, cover those bases. And now I think, I'm not going to say it's going to be the best relationship, but at least she's on better footing now than she was before. But the thing that I take away from that I think is so important, which I don't think Ruth was betting on this, was the fact that when she went to Peter and said to Peter, one person comes to visit, it's a coincidence. Two comes to visit, it's something else. And I think three, she said something, but when it's three, it's Eli. And I loved how he put his foot down at that moment and said, I'm not getting involved in this. You two get your crap together. I hired you to run a campaign. And so the thing I liked about it was that he didn't throw Eli under the bus. He didn't take Ruth's side on this, given the history and the respect. And I'm sure, again, I will get it from a lot of people out there. I think the love that he has for Eli still. He didn't take Ruth's side, which I think shocked Ruth. So she realized, I need to change my strategy if I'm going to continue to keep Peter on my side. And I need to do what he's asking me to do, which is take him out of the Ruth-Eli equation and fix my own crap. And that's why she went to Jackie and Grace together. And I love the whole scene when Peter was like, I'm dying to hear as Jackie and Grace go back and forth on this issue. And I will talk to anybody else. I will do anything to get out of this room. And he did. He went and talked to Ruth. But I love the fact that it was just like, you see these passionate people and these passionate women going back and forth. And the guy was like, I'll do anything to get out of here. They'll just tell me what they want me to do almost. And again, any excuse to see Peter, I love it. Again, I know I'm going to catch tons and tons of flack for that. The other thing that this episode did was it brought out other information about Jason Krause. This investigator, remember? This investigator who's I think he came around in episode 2. We didn't really see him in episode 3. We heard his voice. We heard his name mentioned. And now he's back in episode 4. And the way they brought out the information about him was when Alicia was questioning him in her case against Salvatore's. And I loved how they threw that in because it was the same type of thing they did last season when Johnny Elfman, that character, came on. Remember, they talked about his past and maybe a car accident. So they gave you color, but they really didn't directly go into it. So we kind of know that this guy is our mystery man, the man who we should be concerned about. I mean, I loved how at the end, Alicia actually said to him, should I be worried about you? And he said, yes, you should be. So Jeffrey Dean Morgan is doing a fantastic job with his character because he has pulled me in. I want to know more. Yes, he is on my hottie list. If anyone was wondering out there, because I keep a hottie list. He is definitely 100% on my hottie list, but I want to know more about his story. I'll hold until predictions about how I feel about he and Alicia. I'll hold that. But I do like the fact that they set him up and we learned a little bit more. I mean, he has that kind of dangerous leather jacket look, which we all love. But now we've learned a little bit more about his history. And so he was an attorney before, not always a private investigator. He was actually an attorney, which I think is going to help Alicia in the future with working with this guy. And I think the last thing that we can talk about, let me just go back to one more thing about the case with Salvatore's. Racial profiling is such a topic that, again, in this episode, there were no solutions. But I loved how they brought it up. I'm from a hometown, and there is a store that I will leave the name of it unmentioned. But it's the type of place where, as growing up, I went to the store and felt like I was always watched. I went to the store and always felt like they were, following particular people around of a particular color. And so I love that the Kings brought this issue up. I was excited to think that Alicia was going to take on a class action suit, because to have a store where you have so many potential plaintiffs is something that needs to be addressed. And so with the Kings and with the Good Wife, we shouldn't be surprised if this story comes back around again, but we will see. But I did love the fact they touched upon that racial profiling topic, again, given what's going on in today's society. And the way the episode ended, which I think I might have called this in predictions like season 7, episode 1, was Alicia and Luca sitting down having a drink, so reminiscent of Alicia when she used to go out with, I don't even think should we still mention the person who left from last season? I'm not even sure. But a lot happens with Alicia and whoever she's having drinks with. But Alicia and Luca were having drinks, and Luca was just honest with her, and she was 100% true. She's like, you don't work in bond court because, one, you care too much and you take too much time with your cases, which we've said from day one, and Alicia's starting to realize. But she asked her if she wanted to join forces. Not exactly sure what that means right now. We don't even know if the offer that Lewis put on the table to Alicia is still open. So I'm not sure if she's asking, maybe the three of them would join forces. I'm not 100% sure. And I loved how we didn't get an answer. So we will have to see what's going to happen in next week's episode. I think we covered pretty much everything. If I missed something, you guys let me know out there. Definitely tweet to me and tweet to everyone else. Our hashtag is ABTVGoodWife. You guys are fantastic with the tweets, and I love to read them every week. But if you want to use that hashtag, you can. It's hashtag ABTVGoodWife. And if I missed something, let me know. But I guess we should go into a little bit of predictions.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
So, as I said before, this episode didn't really set up a lot of stuff in personal lives, but I do have a couple predictions. I will go back to my prediction with Luca from season 7, episode 1, when I said, I don't think Luca and Alicia's relationship is so coinky dinky we just met at bond court. I definitely believe that Lewis Canning still has something to do with it. And so I'm thinking that possibly we might be looking at the law firm of Alicia, Lewis, and Luca. I definitely think that Luca's going to say yes to Alicia's offer. We have to figure out exactly what that is. And Lucas is very smart. She's helped Alicia with several different her cases, like I said before, and helped her, win the brass ring and bring it home. So the two of them pairing up isn't surprising to me, but I will also say there's something about Luca that doesn't sit right with me as of yet. I hope in the next couple of episodes, we saw in the previews of next week that Howard's going to be back. I hope we get more Howard and Jackie. I wasn't here for the after show last week, but I just want to put it out there. I love the two of them together. I think it's the cutest, most fantastic thing ever. So I hope we get to see more of them together. And I will say for the Krause and Alicia relationship, I'm wondering, you guys let me know what you think out there. I think we need a love interest for Alicia, but I think this is too obvious. I think this plops down, and this one is just too, all I can say is it's just too obvious. I think to have Alicia and Jason Krause get together would just be a little cliche and a little too cliche for The Good Wife. This season is so much about Alicia gaining her footing and reinventing herself, that a lot of times when that stuff happens, people don't have time for relationships. And so I don't know if the Kings are going to go there. If they do, I do not think it's going to be Jason. You guys let me know what you think out there. So it was just me, and I hope you enjoyed it. But I think we took care of everything from, the top to bottom. You let me know if I missed anything. We will be back next week, the full crew. So please tune in. My name again is Tara Johnson, and you can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at TJ Wagging Her Tail. And if you have a moment, I'd ask you to check out my women's talk show, Words, Wine, and Women. You can find us at wordswinewomen.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you next week. Have a great one.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.